In the last year, Stephen Colbert and Jon Stewart have both announced that they're stepping down from their lead roles on Comedy Central news shows, The Colbert Report and The Daily Show. And these are truly big losses because both men have done so much for the country. And that is not a joke. With intelligent humor, both Colbert and Stewart have successfully served the causes of truth and justice, as well as keeping the powerful in line. Now, I think it's hard to describe well to a person who has not seen their shows exactly how Colbert and Stewart work, but I can start by saying they both use a wide variety of humor. They both use lots of satire, which is layered with puns, irony, metaphor, and sarcasm. Colbert plays a conservative character. Stewart works as himself. So one example of Colbert's satire was when he took his character, the persona he plays, on the road in 2006 to the White House Correspondents' Dinner, which is always a comedy night at the White House. Many times roasting the president or other leaders. This was during the second Bush presidency, and Mr. Colbert stood at the podium on stage 12 feet away from President Bush, sitting right there. So keep in mind, Mr. Colbert's character, the persona, often says things that are the exact opposite of what he himself believes. He said, "Ladies and gentlemen of the press corps, Madam First Lady, Mr. President, my name is Stephen Colbert, and tonight it is my privilege to celebrate this president. We're not so different, he and I. We get it. We're not brainiacs on the nerd patrol. We're not members of the Factinista. We go straight from the gut. Right, sir? That's where the truth lies, right down here in the gut, not in books, which are overrated." In the same speech, Mr. Colbert went on to say, "I stand by this president because he stands for so much. This president stands for things, and he stands on things, like aircraft carriers and rubble. And that sends a strong message that whatever happens to America, she will always rebound with the most powerfully staged photo ops in the world." So with comedy like that, both shows have been highly successful, including in the ratings. And over the last 2 years, The Daily Show has achieved the top rankings in late-night talk show ratings, topping Jimmy Fallon and Jay Letterman, and this includes especially in the coveted 18 to 49-year-old demographic viewership. It's a big deal. It's a lot of dollars. It is also true that various surveys indicate that people who watch The Daily Show comedy news do a better job of answering questions about current events than people who watch Fox News, ABC and CBS, CNN and MSNBC. Seems, how could this be? It seems improbable. What does it say terrible about the real news and how they're doing educating people on domestic and current and international events? But it also says something about this satirical news trend. Penn State researcher Sophia McLennan offers some thoughts. She recently wrote the book, "Is Satire Saving Our Nation? Mockery and American Politics." Professor McLennan believes that using humor with puns and metaphors and sarcasm increases critical thinking. You have to filter through what's going on here. Is he saying it real, or is he saying it different than he thinks? You can't just let it hit you, and whatever sticks, sticks. She also believes from studies and interviews that watching these shows increases a person's commitment to being a positive, active member of society. I think that's counterintuitive for many people. It was counterintuitive for me at the beginning watching those guys, because I thought in the beginning they were very cynical, especially Colbert. Cynicism tends to say, forget about it, it's all lost, there's nothing you can do. But that's not what these trends of humor in these shows are about. Colbert and Stewart have always been committed. They remain highly committed to helping the country become its best self, believing we can keep living out our values more fully. McLennan says that the growth of satire in America has empowered more people to have fun while they are reimagining their roles as citizens. So where more people felt powerlessness, they're getting their mojo back, or for some generations, getting their mojo for the first time. For many centuries around the world, people have used satire for the common good. Sadly, not everybody's always free and safe to do so. This was exemplified by the heinous murders in France of 4 cartoonists working for the satirical newspaper Charlie Hebdo. The dangers people suffer in Europe, Asia, and the Middle East, I think, should engender gratitude for Americans' relative freedom of speech. And as a people of faith, I believe we should strengthen our commitment to maintaining and growing these freedoms. And the National Security Agency tapping tons of phones and monitoring email does not support that freedom. We stand on the shoulders of people throughout history who have used humor for the common good. In England, going back, the job of the court gesture was to tell the tough truth to the king, many times using humor, many times a fact or a reality the king might not want to hear. So, for example, if Obama were king today, his court gesture might joke about the fact that Obama won the Nobel Peace Prize and he bombs people and communities all the time. Voltaire, Mark Twain, and Lenny Bruce all are examples of people who used humor for the common good. I have a hilarious minister colleague, Meg Barnhouse, who one of her missions has always been to teach that male gender-specific notions of God can hinder people's spiritual well-being. She doesn't like it, and neither do I, when people just assume that God should be talked about as a man. And so Meg has developed a little tactic, which it's radical. When she sees a picture of a male God, you know, like the bearded guy, including in a church, she'll take a marker and change it into a woman, kind of a voluptuous, sexy-looking female God. Humor to empowerment. As we know, in human experience, tragedy and comedy are often deeply interconnected. And when we're stuck in sad, hard times, humor often serves as the funny bridge, going from sad back to being okay. Laughing can be a path to the realization that you will make it, and the world is still okay, even if you are hurting. And our hearts and brains often can't navigate as easily through other routes. With this kind of intuitive wisdom, my second cousin, Maria Bamford, ingeniously uses humor to overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles, experiencing long-standing personal battles with painful and scary depression. From the time Maria was young, she started using humor as a coping mechanism for herself, and it did not take long for Maria to realize that joking about things that quite often do not feel funny at all brings solace to others. She does stand-up comedy about being suicidal. She jokes about suicidal tendencies. You have to see it to even try and get what she's come, because she's experienced that many times herself. Now Maria has a wide fan base around the country of people who tell her in many ways her humorous framing of intense mental health problems helps them to relocate their laugh and find their way back to being balanced. How do you use humor as a bridge back to feeling okay about life? We all know that danger lurks in the use of humor to overcome problems because sarcasm can quite easily become too negative and hurtful. And it's often personal and contextual as to how someone experiences the impact of humor. Is it helpful or hurtful? It can depend on the day or the hour. You know, if that joke helps me to get through a hardship. So of course we should all be sensitive, and we should also not allow sensitivity to completely rob us of the chance for a good laugh to spread healing. People in recovery from addiction of booze or drugs or eating often joke with each other about their hard times and the messes it has got us into. And there's a saying, laugh or cry. A lot of times the healthy way through is do some of both. Laugh and cry together to get through those hard times. I was at a jazz show with Kristen on Mardi Gras Fat Tuesday, and Irvin Mayfield was introducing his band, and a soloist came up to sing. He said, listen, this guy, people, you got to give him some love because his girlfriend dumped him yesterday, and he's in the pits. And I didn't know what was going on because the band is all kind of smiling as he's saying this. So I don't know what the real story on that one was, but my impression is that there's some kind of a message being given from Irvin Mayfield saying humor can be used to get through tough times and to be resilient. Humor is also used to increase creative, productive energy. I have my best friend's daughter is in senior physics class, and every Tuesday's joke day. The teacher says the kids have 10 minutes to just tell jokes to each other, and their creativity and problem solving goes up. How do you use laughing to increase your productive energy and problem solving? I don't know anything about physics. I would need a lot of laughing to even start. Never took it. The Dalai Lama is the spiritual and political leader of Tibet, which suffers intense problems of oppression, many due to the Chinese government. And the Dalai Lama knows about the empowering effects of laughter. He says, I've been confronted with many difficulties throughout the course of my life, and my country is going through a critical period. But I laugh often, and my laughter is contagious. He says, when people ask me how I find the strength to laugh, I reply that I am a professional laugher. Laughing is a characteristic of Tibetans, he says, and his cheerfulness comes from his small village where they have the habit of just joking around with each other all the time. The last quote I say from him is, he says, of course problems exist and we're all responsible for being realistic. But taking only the negative approach does not help one to find solutions. It actually can destroy your peace of mind. You can see the positive side of even the worst tragedies if you adopt a holistic approach. Good advice from a very wise man. My prayer is that regardless of how hard things become, you stay connected to your joy and your laughter. And if you're having a tough time, maybe you can just think of the Dalai Lama laughing with delight, because when he does that, it is contagious. It'll come.